Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today to take a look at some of the changes in the upcoming release wave for Dynamics 365 and the Microsoft Power Platform. I'm Warren Butler, Director of Marketing here at Preact, and today I'm pleased to be joined by our Training and Digital Learning Lead, James Greaves, who will walk you through a selection of the new features which are now available to preview. I must stress this is very much just a selection. The next release wave spans from October through until March 2023, and currently only some of these new features are available to preview, but we do still have plenty to cover during the next 30 minutes or so. As more updates are released, we'll share further information in videos on our YouTube channel, blog posts, and in future webinars. Please do use the questions panel, and at the end of today's presentation we'll go through these to answer your questions about the 2022 Release Wave 2. I'll now hand over to James, who'll start with an overview of the main points that he'll be demonstrating.
Thank you, Warren, and thank you everyone who's joining us this afternoon. We're going to have a look in this session at the modern advanced find. The advanced find has been in Dynamics for a long time, and more recently you've had the advanced filters. The traditional advanced find is going to be switched off by default, and you've now got quite a nice, easy to use option of using the advanced find. We're going to show you some of the ways that that can be used and can be implemented. We're going to show you how you can view the presence of other users. For example, when making a decision as to whether or not to assign a record to them, you can check to see if they're currently online. We're going to have a look at the sequences, which will enable you to automate certain actions when working through a process. So, for example, we're going to show you how you can send out an automated email when an opportunity is created. When that email is replied to, we're going to show you how a task can automatically be created to organise a meeting. We're going to show you the new sales usage reports, which can be switched on to show all of the activities of your users around the sales entities. We're going to show you how you can link Teams chats directly to records within Dynamics, the new sharing links, and the option to have multi-entity forms. So you've always been able to have certain information from related records surfaced on a form. For example, the primary contacts on an account. We'll show you a few brief pieces of information on the account. We're now going to show you how you can have quite a substantial form on the primary contact shown on the account form, and how that can be editable. We'll then show you the elapsed time on an SLA, which will show you not only the time that the SLA has been active, but also the elapsed time. So it's particularly useful if you're working with regular working hours, for example, and let's say a case was logged late on in the day. The SLA might have been active for 2 hours if it was resolved the next day, but the total elapsed time would be a lot longer, and this will show you the difference. We'll also show you how you can visualize a view in Power BI without leaving Dynamics. There's a new feature that will enable you to do that. We hope you find these features useful. The Advanced Find feature within Dynamics has now been replaced by the Edit Filters feature that you see just here. Users can also very easily add columns to a view. So in this case here, I'm looking at a view of active contacts. Now if I wanted to see the job title of these contacts on the screen, I can now add these in very simply without opening up the Advanced Find, just by selecting Edit Columns just here. We can then add a column in. Let's search in here for job title. We can then select it, select close, and now if we wanted to drag these up on the screen, again we can do to make these more prominent. And then finally, once we have those in place, we can then select apply, and you'll now see that that's made a change. Again, if we wanted to sort these views, we can do quite easily. Again, we can just sort them just by clicking these columns. You'll see that's made a change to the view, which can be seen with this asterisk just here. Essentially, if we navigate away from that view, that's now going to be cleared. But if we want to save this to come back to it, it's quite a straightforward process. It's in a slightly different place to before. Just simply click the drop down arrow here, select the option to save as a new view. We can then add to the name, click save, and that's now created a view for us within Dynamics 365. If you wanted to filter using the edit filters, it's quite straightforward. Just select edit filters. We can then click select add row. We can then select a field that we wanted to filter by. I'm just going to select job title and contains data, and then apply. And you'll now see the results. So very similar to what we had previously, but it's just laid out slightly differently. I'm just going to select edit filters again. Just going to delete this out and show you how you can run a related entity search. So instead of scrolling to the bottom of the list like you did with the advanced find, just click add related entity. In this case, I want to filter these records by the company that they're associated with. So I'm just going to select company name accounts. And then I can add some criteria underneath here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to add these as a single row. I'm going to move these out, and I'm actually going to add in a group. So I'm going to group these items together as an OR statement. Just going to select add group. And I want to get a list of people in one city or another. So I'm just going to select OR, and just going to select city equals Redmond. And then add a row to say city equals Maidenhead, and apply. And you can now see the changes that have been made. Now, once we've made an existing change to a saved view, if we click the drop down arrow here, you'll see it gives us the option to either save these changes to the current view or a new view. You'll see these options here. I'm going to select the option to save as a new view, and just going to add into here a little bit of further detail, and let's add into here Redmond and Maidenhead, and then save the record. And that's how you can filter using the new edit filters option. When a view has been created, this can be shared with others just using the drop down option here and then selecting manage and share views. We can then select the relevant view that we want to share. I'm just going to select mine like so. We can then select share. We can then select the user that we want to share with. And then we can assign the relevant permissions to them. Click share, and that will then show in their drop down list. Also, in the option to manage and share views, you'll notice in here that there's some new features where we can hide views. And that's quite useful, as previously system views were shown to everybody. Although they're now displayed by default to everybody, if they're not relevant, people can switch them off. So let's say in this case here, I'm not particularly interested in these contacts with no campaign activities. I can just select hide, like so. Select apply. And now if I select my drop down list, you'll see that they're no longer displayed. That's just quite a nice way that people can keep these lists nice and tidy. And that's the new advanced filter features. If you did want to enable the legacy advanced find, it's simply a case of selecting the relevant environments in admin.powerplatform.com, selecting settings. We can then expand products and then select features, you'll then see that there's various feature switches in here that we can use to switch items on and off. And beneath here, where you have the advanced find options, the modern advanced find is switched on by default now. That can be switched off in this area here. You can also prevent users from being able to hide system views in this same area. Now, one reason why you may want to enable the legacy feature in here is if you want people to be able to search for items that are not shown on the sitemap here. So maybe somebody's in this sales area here and you want them to be able to search for cases. That can now be enabled quite easily. You can add the cases to the sitemap in quite a straightforward fashion. It does require admin permissions and it is something that should be done in the sandbox environment first. But it's just a case of logging into make.powerapps.com, selecting the relevant app. In this case I'm going to select the Sales Hub, select the option to edit. We can then select this option here for navigation and you'll then see the various areas that are selected here displayed. I'm just going to expand sales and just going to open up the customers like so. And let's say I wanted to add the cases in here. We can simply add them just by selecting the relevant section, click add a new sub area. We can then select the content type. I'm just going to select table. We can then select the relevant table. I'm just going to select cases. Click add, and then we can save and publish those changes. So it's quite straightforward just to customize this area, which if you are using the new modern filters, you may want to give a little bit more thought to that process. But that's how the modern advanced find works in Dynamics 365. A further feature that you can use within the latest release wave of Dynamics 365 is presence. This will allow you to select any user of the system, like we see here, see their details and see whether or not they're online. An example of where this could be used would be with reassigning records. Now let's say this case is quite urgent and I want to assign that to a colleague. I can select the assign option here. I can then select the option to assign this to a user or teams, same as normal. And now when I look at my colleagues, I can see if they're online or not. I can now see that my colleague is offline and I could choose to assign this to a team instead. And that's some of the ways that the presence feature can work within the latest release wave of Dynamics 365. We will now have a look at the sequence designer. This will allow you to automatically send out emails and schedule tasks when certain actions take place. In this case here, I'm going to send out an automated email and schedule meetings for compliance on a brokerage opportunity. First of all, we're just going to select the option here to connect the sequence. Now I'm going to select this option here for meetings for brokerage opportunity. You can now see on here that this has automatically sent an email out to the customer. It's then going to monitor this email for a reply. We can now see this in place. I'm just going to reply to this and send the reply. And shortly we're going to see the reply in Dynamics. You can now see this reply has come in and it's now created a task to decide if this opportunity is going to go ahead or not. And these are some of the ways that you can work with these sequences within Dynamics 365. To access the designer for these sequences, just change the area here and we can then select the Sales Insight settings. You can now see the sequence designer here. We can now create these There's a series of templates available for you, such as what to do when contacts don't show up for meetings. I'm just going to start this from blank. Just going to add a sequence name. We can assign this to various record types, leads, opportunities, accounts or contacts. I'm going to assign mine to a lead and then click next. You can then add in a series of conditions and steps. So first of all, I'm just going to put a condition on the lead to say that this lead has to be a brokerage lead. We can then select the relevant field. In this case, it's going to be the industry. And we're going to say that it has to be equal to brokers. You can then see you've got a path for what should take place if this is true or if this is not true. So if it is true, I'm just going to send out an automatic email just from the drop down here and select automated email. I can now add in the title for this. And then further down, we can now add in an email template. I'm going to select the brokerage compliance. We can then apply that template. We can then add into here a condition, for example, to wait for a reply to this email. And we can have a time period for how long we wait. We can advance to the next stage if this is received prior to those 2 days. And now from here, we can add a further action. So in the example I took, it was just creating a task to schedule the meeting. From there, we can then activate this and your sequence is now ready to use. And that's how you can use the sequences in the latest wave of Dynamics 365. In the latest wave of Dynamics, there's a set of sales usage reports that are available for you. If we select this report, this will give you information on opportunity creation, opportunity qualification and the conversion ratio. You'll see here that I've set this back over a period of time, and we can then see where opportunities have been won or lost per month. You'll see on here the percentage of opportunities that have been lost, won and open all in one place. You'll see which users have converted the most opportunities and also those that have created them. You'll notice here also that you can filter these by different users, different managers and so forth. And you also have a set of metrics here on the leads. And you'll see on here that this will give you information on lead creation and qualification over time, the average number of days to convert a lead, the number of leads that are currently open and qualified in the system are also displayed. And you'll notice here on the opportunity stage here, it will give you the average number of days to convert an opportunity. To make these reports available, change the area to the app settings. And then you'll see you've got this area here for the sales usage reports. And it's just a case of ensuring that they are enabled. It may take 24 hours from this being enabled to the dashboards showing. Also, these dashboards refresh every 24 hours. We can now link Teams communications really easily with Dynamics 365. Simply a case of selecting the Collaborate option here. You can then see within this area that we can start typing a name into this section. So I'm just going to search for a colleague's name, like so. We can then type a message into here. So I'm going to add into here, will you have a proof of concept by Wednesday, or do we need to use Tim? Like so. So just a little short informal communication, but still useful to have in place on the opportunity record. I'm just going to click on here to start the chat. You can now see on here there's a link to chat, so anybody else who comes into this area can then click on there and view this. And also, if I go back to my record in Microsoft Teams, you can now see that communication is displayed here. We can see the name of the communication is the same as the opportunity. You can see here possible broker sale, and I've now got a hyperlink to be able to get back to that opportunity. So it's a nice easy way of being able to communicate in Teams but have those communications logged against our record in Dynamics. There's now a new way of sharing records within Dynamics. You'll see the option here to share. We can select the option here and then select Manage Access. We can then see anybody that this has previously been shared with. So you can see a slight change there from what we had before. Now going to search for another user. And now I can select this user and then select the permissions that I want to grant. I can now select Share, and those changes have now been made. Now if I wanted to create a link for my colleague, I could click on here where it says Share and then select Copy Link. It will give us a link straight to this record in a similar fashion to how you can share records that are on OneDrive, for example. And we can also email a link straight to the record. So again, if I click on Share, Email a Link, you can now see on here that it shows on here who this is shared with. I could then select the option here for email, and you can now see that this has put the link straight into an email to be shared with colleagues. And that's a new way of sharing records within Dynamics 365. One of the new features of the latest wave is that you can have multi-entity forms. So in this example here, you can see that we've surfaced some information on the primary contact that's read-only. What you can now do is you can actually have a full form here that you can interact with. You can even work through business process flows on related records. So I'm going to change it so as we can populate all of the details of the primary contact from within the account form. To do that, I'm just going to select the option here to get more components. And just going to search in here for form and select form component control. We can then select the column that we want. In this case, just going to select here that we want the contact column, like so. We can then drag this on where we want this to appear on the screen. So I'm just going to drag this on beneath the primary contacts. Now save the change. From here we can mark on here other items that we want. Do we want to use the main form for the create dialog, for the edit dialog, and so forth. This can now be saved and published. And now if I go to this record, you can see the primary contacts here, but I can also see on here that a lot of our information is actually missing, and I can populate that directly from the account form here. So I can now add into here an email address, for example. Could then add some further details to the number, to the mobile number, and so forth. And again, from here, you can now save those changes directly from the account form. And that's how we can work with multi-entity forms within the latest wave of Dynamics 365. A further feature of the latest release of Dynamics is the option to have SLAs that will calculate both the active duration and the elapsed time. Essentially, there may be a difference if, for example, you're using the working hours feature and a case was logged at the end of the day, and maybe there was
1 hour that the case was active. However, it was resolved the following day and the elapsed time ran to 13 hours. In that case, you would see the total time that the case was open, that the SLA was active. You'd see that under the elapsed time, but that would be different to the active duration.
A further feature of the latest release is the option to analyse a view in Power BI. All that you need to do is select this option here marked as Visualise the View. In this case, I'm going to do this on the view of all opportunities. This will then load up charts looking at whichever view you had open at that point in time. So you can now see that I've got some charts here looking at actual revenue, and if I untick actual revenue and tick estimated revenue, you'll now see that it builds charts based on estimated revenue. If I select one area of the chart, so let's say I selected Blue Yonder, you can now see that all of the other charts just show a highlighted area here relating purely to that selected item. If I click on the background, you'll see everything goes back to normal. If I selected the rating, let's say to warm rather than hot or cold, you'll then see all of the other charts refresh as well, and you can see that it's AdventureWorks that comes out on top. Once we've got this in place, you can now see these options. You can save this, which will create a Power BI file, and you can also publish this directly to a workspace. And that's how you can visualize your view using the latest release wave of Dynamics 365. This has now brought us to the end of the list of features that we've looked at. We hope that you found the demo useful.
Thank you, James. We'll kick off the Q&A shortly, but please do contact us if you have any questions about this release, especially if you need any clarification about the new advanced find. In the first instance, our support team will help with any user issues, and we can also help by providing user familiarization training on this or any of the other new features. As James demonstrated, the modern advanced find does provide many improvements, but Dynamics users who are very familiar with the long-standing advanced find function may need some additional support once this is rolled out. So if you haven't already, we do recommend testing this feature before it's automatically enabled. So that concludes our main presentation today, and we'll pause for just a moment before we go through your questions.